Had a visit with an old friend last week. I am a victim of the science age. Wow. Nobody rules these streets at night but me, the atomic punk. Let's go. Everybody, thanks for joining today. I appreciate it. So let me set this up. Last week I'm listening to Neil Young's Harvest for the fourth time, right? I'm getting ready to do the review. I want to make sure that I've got all my notes are accurate and there's nothing else left to be said that I didn't want to jot down. So I finished that up, and as soon as I finished that up, I literally put the needle up on the turntable. I sat back down in my chair. What am I going to listen to next? I've got some time, right? I've got some time. I got at least another hour before I have to get ready for dinner and all that stuff. And a buddy of mine, one of my best friends, I met back in 8th grade, and we still hang out together. The family's going on vacation together. So he's listening to Van Halen 1, the debut album, on his DAC through his system. And he says something to the effect, man, I wore this cassette out back in the day. And I'm like, yeah, you know what? I remember you wearing that cassette out. And I think I actually own this on vinyl, and sure enough, I do. And again, we're here today to talk about the 2015 Remastered Police. Remastered Police. We are here to talk about the 2015 release. And I want to make sure I show this so I don't get pulled over by the Remastered Police. Everybody, this is the 2015 release, right there. Okay, it is a, I believe it's, yeah, take a look at the sticker. All right, yeah, we're talking about a lacquer's cut by Chris Bellman at Bernie Grumman Mastering, the 2015 release. I'll put a link into here from Discog so you can get as much information as you want on it. I'm not sure what the price is. I think I actually got this either at, gosh, did I get this at Barnes & Noble maybe about, well, yeah, probably about 2015, 2016. Listened to it once and put it away. Or maybe I got this at I think I got it at Barnes & Noble. Anyway, we're going to hear about talking about the 2015 release. We are not here talking about, nor are we comparing this against the 2009 Steve Hoffman release. I don't own it. I don't believe I've heard it. But I do want to talk about this because this is visiting an old friend. All right, let's go back a little bit. For us Gen Xers, this album came out in 1978, I believe. Yes, it came out in February 10th, 1978. Debut album. What a debut album. And it was recorded between August and October of 1977. Enough of the history on this thing. You already know it. But what I do want to say is I first heard this, because when this came out, I was, 78? I was 9 years old. Not even 9 yet. So I had no idea who Van Halen was at that age. But a couple years later, I remember it vividly. In 1981, I'm sitting at a friend's house, and we're playing Castle Wolfenstein on this humongous Apple computer. I mean, we weren't doing these on we were doing these on the big floppies, everybody, okay? Gen Xers, the big floppies, Castle Wolfenstein, and I remember the size of the computer was about the size of a toaster oven. Hey, yeah, the thing was like, I don't know, man, it was like this big, this tall, white, and I remember it had a, of course, we're looking at a small little CRT monitor, and we had the game controller and the keyboard, came out on a ribbon. The ribbon was like this thick. Anyway, long time ago, everybody. So in 1981, we're playing this at my buddy's house, and I think it was the summertime. And he had a couple older brothers. He was the youngest guy, and one of his older brothers had a copy of this, and I remember we were listening to it. We went up to his room, and the first time I heard the beginning of Running with the Devil, oh my gosh, I got that same feeling the other day when I listened to this. We'll get to that in a second, but it was, what the heck is this? So in 81, I'm like 12 years old, and it blew me away. I hadn't heard anything like this. Eruption, oh my gosh. Anyway, we'll get to those songs in a second, but this album floored me, and I was lucky to have friends that had older sisters and older brothers, and they had all this music from the late 70s. It completely rocked my world. In fact, it wasn't very long afterwards, my very first Van Halen album that I ever bought with my own money was Diver Down. I think that came out in like 82-ish, if I'm not mistaken. I think around my 13th birthday I probably bought that. But anyway, let's come back to this thing. So, yeah, I don't know what the price of this is. I'll put it here shortly. I think this is still the version you can get out there. You can probably still get it at Barnes & Noble or Amazon or whatever. I'll put the links out here. But yeah, this thing is 180 gram vinyl. It's a very solid piece of vinyl. It was very flat. Took it out, cleaned it, didn't have any surface noise. So we're cooking with gas. Let's go and give this thing a spin. Real quick, packaging, yeah, it's an inexpensive record, right? So you're not gonna have great packaging, but it's good enough. The insert on this thing, of course, you got this, but check this out. I forgot how young these guys were. Man, I wanted to check their ages, and I wanted to check their ages and see how old they actually were when they cut this first album. Man, just, anyway. Look at that. Look at Diamond Dave back there. Tell you what, let me take it out of the... Look at that. Seriously, man. Great stuff. I'll put some other pictures on this thing that we'll go through in a little bit. Anyway, great stuff. Awesome. That was it for the inserts. So no other candy in this album, but who cares, right? It's the record that counts. And the record was flat, and it was no surface noise, and it sounded freaking great. So as the sticker says, this thing is a 2015 remastered from original analog tapes, lacquers cut by Chris Bellman at Bernie Grumman Mastering. All right? Says here, right here, it's a remaster, everybody, so that's what I'm going to go with. Again, the condition was flat, no surface noise whatsoever. All right, so for those who don't know, I'm listening to this on an Audio-Technica LP120 turntable with an upgraded stylus. Take a look in the description below. Going through a Pro-Ject 2-box S2 Phono preamp out to my Rotel integrated amp. It's a A11 Tribute, and then out these Wharfedale Denton 85th Anniversary Edition speakers. All right, and they are 10 feet apart, and I'm 10 feet away in the sweet spot. All right, so what I did was I set my amp up to a volume of 74, and I did a dB check on 2 songs. Okay, the first one I did was Running with the Devil, and we'll put it right here. The low end dB was 62, the high end was 95, and it was an average of 84 decibels. And that's pretty much on par for what my average is. On the high end, I mean 84, 85 is usually the high end I listen to it on average. And usually the low end is going to be around 81, 82. So it was coming through just fine on the speakers. So that was the dB on Running with the Devil, and I did do a dB check on one more, and that was Eruption, and that's right here. The low end was 53, high end was 90, and the average was 82. All right, soundstage. No complaints on the soundstage here. You know, this thing, Chris Bellman cut this thing really, really well, like he usually does. And I was getting a nice 5 to 6 foot wide soundstage. That means 5 or 6 feet outside the speakers. Center imaging was locked. Very precise imaging on this record. No complaints whatsoever. This album has a lot of sparkly highs, and we'll get to that in a second. And the center imaging, I was getting a height of around 5 feet as well. Nothing really much. It wasn't coming from outside my room or anything, but this was a solid sound stage and really, really good imaging. Certainly for an album that, listen, let's be real. The last time I heard this on vinyl, I was probably, I was a teenager. And it was on a system that probably wasn't as good as this modestly good system. It's a, again, modest audiophile channel. We're not throwing a lot of money at this system, but it's good enough. I shouldn't say it that way. I'm very fortunate to have this system, but as people do spend quite a bit on their systems, mine is modest, right? It's sitting at all in around $3,500. That is a lot of money, but we all know in this hobby it can go way, way higher than that. Yeah, I haven't really heard this vinyl before since I was a kid. And we were probably listening to it on a rack system, right, with, oh gosh, who the heck knows what systems were back in those days. But if you were around, you know the older brothers and sisters had this rack of a system and had the turntable and the speakers and all the components all built in from Sony, Pioneer, whatever it was. And then the rest of the time that I heard this thing, it was blaring out of Rock 101 WGIR-FM coming out of Manchester, New Hampshire. And that's where we listened to this album. Block Party Weekends, right? We're going to hear 3 from Van Halen, and there was always 1 from this album. This album is arguably my favorite. I certainly don't have a more favorite Van Halen album than this one. Yeah, the depth. Now, the depth on this thing was really showcased because I think how clear the imaging was, in particular with the drumming and the cymbals. You got a lot of punch in this record from Eddie's guitar, the bass, and most importantly, Alex's drums. Man, the cymbals on this thing were dancing all over the place. And you got a nice amount of perceived depth. I'd say it was around 3 feet, maybe not quite to the wall, but certainly in front of the speakers a little bit. So maybe 2 feet 2 feet behind these speakers. These are rear ported, sitting about 3 feet from my wall. And in certain cases, you know, the sound was coming that you felt depth from about here to about 2 feet behind the speaker. All right. Anything more? Just as far as overall impressions, I'm not going to go into any great depth, but I will say this album provided a ton of punch. This album was full of energy. This album had great sparkles on the high, some grunt coming from below. Essentially, yeah, great imaging, full of energy. This album grabbed you by the throat, slapped you around for about 35 minutes, and left you spent. It was a fun ride, everybody. All right, and I guess really what I'm trying to say is, for those of us who, you know, I'm not going to put myself in the boat with any of you, but right, you come here, you listen to some great albums, you listen to 45 RPMs by, you know, Fleetwood Mac Rumors and some of the other ones I've done, the David Crosby debut album, Analog Productions, or the CSN Analog Productions, or the Mo-Fi, Dire Straits, right? Those are all on a certain level, and that's the type of music that you think is going to sound awesome on a system. But shame on me, and probably shame on a lot of people my age, that, again, a record that we all know and love from our childhood, that we just kind of, not poo-poo, but we never go back to and listen to on vinyl. Well, boy, man, am I glad I did this. Frankly, I'm so glad that I own the damn album, and in fact own this particular one, because it sounded great. It sounded great. I had a blast listening to this coming through my system, and I'll go through a couple things on some of these songs that really stood out. You know the songs. We're not going to go in any more in depth about that, so let's get on with this. How does it sound? So let's move on to that first song. How does it sound? Like I said earlier, I felt probably just like I did back in 1981 when I was 12. The beginning of Running with the Devil, right? That sound that comes in the beginning, and then Eddie's guitar comes in. You get that little sprinkling up high. Oh, I can't explain. I can't explain it, but your head just starts bobbing right away. And I just put here, damn, punch, growl, sparkle. You had me at the intro. Big smile on my face, of course. Running with the devil. That's how I and probably many people were introduced to Van Halen. Wow, what a debut album, what a debut song. Goes right into Eruption, right? We've all heard it a bazillion times. This time was just a little bit better because I haven't heard it on a good hi-fi system in a long time. Right, that solo's right in the middle, and it is chewy, it's tangible, it's right there in the center of your room, and you can hear the air and space around it. Very good. Man, frankly, it brought new life into hearing Eruption again, because if I heard it one more time in the car, I typically wait for, are they gonna play what's coming next? If not, I'm gonna move the channel. And obviously, it goes right into the third song on side one, You Really Got Me. Eddie's guitar on the left, then the rest of the band fills in. And you get those real sparkly highs here. Love the grunts and growls from Dave, Diamond Dave. This is my favorite version of the band. When Sammy Hagar came in, right, it was 85, I think. I bought that album, but there wasn't many albums I bought after Diamond Dave left the band. This lineup is the lineup for Van Halen, for me personally. Like I said, Dave's grunts and growls throughout that song were fantastic. All over the place, right? You know it. Going into the fourth song on side one, Ain't Talking About Love. I put here first thing, so pure. So pure. With Eddie coming out of the left. Dave's vocals are in the center. The cymbals are so clear on this thing throughout the entire album. The drums, what Bellman did on this lacquer, man, the mastering, yeah, so very clear. Again, I'm used to listening to it with 54-year-old ears in the car. This was a treat. Dave's vocals in the center, and then the cymbals were just right behind the vocals, and again, very clear. Outstanding imaging, I put. Awesome drum panning towards the end of the song. Never heard this song better. Just never heard it better. And then it goes into the fifth song, which is I'm the One. Put here, freaking awesome. It's like one of those songs you don't hear all the time, right? But it's just as good as the rest of them as far as I'm concerned, and this can't, you never hear it on the radio. So the only time you're going to listen to I'm the One, it's usually you got called up on some Pandora or Amazon Music or something, or you get a chance to listen to it on the record. I put frantic, full of energy, nice heavy bass. Love the vocals in the breakdown, right? When they just, all the music goes away and then you get the vocals in the breakdown and it's kind of like a cappella. And what you got out of the soundstage was all the vocals separating individually. So, you know, Dave and Alex and Michael and Eddie, and they're all spread out through the soundstage singing a cappella. That was cool. That was really cool. Didn't expect that, but a lot of fun. All right. Hey, I just want to say thank you so much for coming to the channel. I appreciate it. My name is Mark. This is the Modest Audiophile channel, where we love the music we listen to. We want it to be as good as we possibly can, but let's be real. We're not going to take this too seriously, right? It's music. We're in it for the fun. And if it ain't fun, it ain't worth doing. So, hey, if it's your first time here, thanks. If you've been here before, thank you so much. If you haven't hit that subscribe button, hey, go for it. Hit it. You can always take it away later. All right, let's go back to the Wayback Machine and get back to listen to more Van Halen. Side 2 now, we flip it over, and it starts off with Jamie's Crying, one of the ones that you do hear all the time on WGIR, Rock 101. I put Flashback City, listening to it in the car. So lively, perfect, nice depth. The cymbals were like all individually spaced. It was great. It was the best I've ever heard this song. And what I'll say is, you know, The drumming I mentioned to in a couple of the songs, the drumming on this song, on this album rather, was really comes through on this remaster. Again, I'm not going to compare it to one previous because I don't have it. But in this case, the drumming was so articulate and so well defined. What did I put here? I put, yeah, in this song, there were drum patterns that I've never heard before, or certainly wasn't accustomed to sitting down and listening them and really opening my ears up to the music on this album. In this case, I had that opportunity, and I'm listening to Alex hit these drums with different patterns that I simply hadn't heard before, and that's why I'm in it. Maybe that's why you're in this game, is to hear stuff from your favorite music that you haven't heard before. Man, it was great. All right, we go into the second song on side 2, and that's Atomic Punk. Oh my gosh, I just put, oh yeah. You know, that's the beginning at that Eddie scratching guitar on the left, and then the center, you're hitting the center of the cymbals, so pristine, so clean, so tight. I just put crisp, clean punch. Dave has never sounded better. Arguably, he's never sounded better. I'm a victim of the science age, and then boom, Dave takes it the rest of the way. Great drum kit. It actually accentuated the overall depth on this particular song. It's just awesome. I mean, awesome. Nobody rules these streets at night but me, the Atomic Punk. Fantastic. I can still hear it in my head. Great song. Great song. And then we go right into that, into Feel Your Love Tonight. And I put here, where's the party? It's like you get the flashbacks from driving around in the car, right? In those mid-'80 years, y'all wind up at a gas station or a shopping plaza, and where's the party tonight? That was the vibe that heck, this whole listening experience gave me. What fun. I put here for Feel Your Love Tonight, excellent separation in this song. I put full, excellent sound, right? These aren't audiophile words, full, excellent sound. This is just, it's just a guy listening to songs he hasn't heard in a long time. The lead was coming out of the left, the rhythm was coming out of the right, and there were great backing vocals once again. You kind of forget Van Halen had some great backing vocals throughout their years. You know, one of the bands from that era that really pulled that off well, from my recollection anyway. Coming out of Feel Your Love Tonight, we go right into Little Dreamer. I forgot about this song. I forgot about it, and as soon as it hit, I just went, first word, killer song. This one presented itself in a very, well, it presented itself and I wrote it down because it was kind of remarkable at the time. This one stood out as having a very wide soundstage, or as wide as any song on the album. This was at least 6 feet outside of the speakers. Presented itself really good. The center cymbal hit in this song was right in your face and it was so very clear. Again, great job on the drums on this mastering. That tap, 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 tap right there. Clear as day. Very holographic. Yes, very holographic. Grunty guitar was thick. Presence was a lot of presence of the guitar on this album. And great vocals once again. Like I said, Dave's never sounded better. He sounded as good, but never sounded better than he did on this album. For me, personally. All right, after Little Dreamer, Ice Cream Man, love the song. Even when it comes up on the radio today, I'm not turning the song off. It's love Ice Cream Man. What I'll say about this one was, I don't even have to look at my notes, is right in the beginning, you get that Dave acoustic guitar. Yeah, and that's center image, and yet you hear the rest of the room fills in with silence, but you're hearing the silence. Does that make sense? You're hearing silence. You're hearing the room. And then And you know, basically, you know how big the soundstage is, yet only an acoustic guitar and Dave's vocals coming out of the center of the image. But when that electric and the rest of the band kick in, that space that you know is there immediately gets filled in, and you're off and running. Really, really nice ride on the song. Nice ride. What else did I put? Mike was slapping that bass during the solo. You really get a good chance to. I'll say this throughout the song. Overall, Mike's bass was I think purposefully put more in the background. It wasn't forward. Drums were forward overall. Eddie's guitars were forward for the most part. The vocals were forward. David's vocals were forward. A couple songs they were recessed a little bit. We'll get to that in the next one actually. But I wish that overall Michael's bass was a little bit more prevalent. It was there, it was getting into some very low sounds, so that was good, but it was just recessed back a little bit in the soundstage. And what I put here is at the end, right, I think, obviously Eddie overdubbed another solo, because most of the time his solos are coming out of the left side of the soundstage. At the end of this song, he's got a little bit of a blurb of another solo coming out of the right, but what surprised me is that it was lower right. And that was pretty cool. It's like, oh, Eddie's down there again right now, with an overdub. And I just put so buttery smooth was that particular little solo at the end. Really enjoyed that. Hadn't really noticed that before, so that was cool. And then this thing ends with On Fire. Right away, pow, punches you in the face, and I almost felt like at this point, I'm spent, my toes have been tapping, my head's been bobbing for over 35 minutes now. And then you end this album with On Fire. I almost felt like, what was the name of that? I'm Not Worthy! That thing. The hell was the name of that movie? I'll figure it out later, but yeah, that's how I felt. Not Worthy. Man, what a listen. Dave's vocals were clear, but just a bit recessed in this one. And that's what I was alluding to before. The drums and cymbals were right here in your face, guitars were right here in your face, and Dave was just a little bit recessed. Still very clear, but a little bit recessed in the center back, giving more articulation to the overall depth in this album. Again, this is not a serious review, everybody. This is me visiting an old friend from high school and just getting blown away how well this thing sounds on my modestly priced system. And if maybe a lot of you are in the same boat as me, right? Gen Xers sitting here in your mid-50s, early to mid-50s, hadn't really given this album a solid listen to in a long time. Well, the good news is there's a really good pressing right now out there. And it's relatively cheap. I'll go put a link in here, hopefully I can find it on Amazon or something like that. Now, I'll show you. It's not an affiliate link. I don't get anything for any of this, but just looking to spread the news. Go out there, find yourself a 2015 pressing of this thing, right? And you saw the sticker earlier. It's Chris Bellman. Really, really good. What else do I want to say about this? Anything? Anything? No. This was just a great ride. Okay. So that's it, everybody. Hey. If you're looking for a blast down the past, down memory lane, and maybe it's Friday night and maybe it's Friday afternoon, you've had a long week, you want to go find yourself your favorite beverage, whatever that is, slap this thing on the turntable, put the needle down, kick back, and enjoy the ride down memory lane. Lot of fun. It'll remind you of your local radio station from back in the 80s. Whatever block party weekend you folks were ready to get going on, this was playing. So that's it. Find some time for yourself, because if not now, when are you gonna do it? Put this puppy on and enjoy yourself. That's all I got for today. Thank you so much for visiting the channel. Hopefully you had a good time going down memory lane with this one as well. Take care, and I'll see you soon. Bye.